Well, it's the summer of animation domination, cartoons trying to keep movie theaters out of collapse. But which cartoon maker will sit on top the mountain at the end of 2024? We'll tell you if it's Despicable Me 4 or can Disney retake the crown with Inside Out 2. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the place where we explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, and my oh my, look how high movie theaters are going today with the success of two animated feature films. And folks, if you've been paying attention to the channel, you're going to hear some things today that confirm what we've been telling you. So easy to do when you simply tell the truth. And don't forget, folks, put in the research necessary to know what's really going on. After this video today, you're going to know what's going on, so click that like button. And if you're not yet a subscriber, join the fastest growing YouTube channel this side of somewhere sunny USA. All right, folks, this is out of Variety. It comes from J. Kim Murphy. Despicable Me 4 suiting up to $120 million 5-day debut. And Maxine with a triple X, well, that's only making $3.2 million because this is the summer of families, gosh darn it. Easy, pro, with the language. The Minions are going bananas for the holidays. Get it? With Despicable Me 4 projecting a 5-day opening of $120 million for the 4th of July weekend, playing in 4,428 locations. Pause. Folks, that's a big number. Anytime you have a movie that makes more than 4,000 screens light up in their favor, you're talking about a movie that has essentially taken over cinemas. When you go far north of 4,000, when you're almost at 4,500, it means that theaters are betting everything they've got on these little yellow blokes. We can't hold that against them for a moment. It's no joke that the Minions, Despicable Me, that's the most lucrative animated franchise in the history of cinema. You might not believe that, but it is. Shrek is number 2. Number 3 is Toy Story in terms of the highest grossing IPs in animated form. It's another triumph for the reliably commercial franchise, albeit notably pacing behind the previous entry, Minions: The Rise of Gru. Now, this is the important part to know about what's going on here, and it's how we can find out exactly who's going to win the day when it comes to the fray between Disney and Universal. So let's take a look at this real quick, folks. Go back in the Wayback Machine, not too far back, though. We just got to go to 2022 with Minions: The Rise of Gru. And what we find here is that despite the fact that the current film is pacing slightly behind, if we believe that it's going to follow a similar trajectory, which is not hard because Minions: The Rise of Gru came out at the exact same holiday weekend frame as the current Despicable Me film. And by the way, whether it's Minions or whether it is Despicable Me, it's the same franchise. But take a look. Minions: Rise of Gru out of 2022 ended up at the end with almost $1,939 million on a very low budget. These films were made on very, very low budgets. Now, $939 million, if the current one is pacing slightly lower, then we would look at the top end for Despicable Me 4 being somewhere around $900 million. Now, that is a problem for Universal if they're wanting to hold on to the animation crown that they picked up after Mario Brothers. It's a problem because, guess what? Disney's going to make more than that. Let's take a look now at Screen Rant. Inside Out 2 box office passes huge domestic milestone amid a record-breaking run. Now, the good news for Universal, if there is good news about stopping your competitor, is that Inside Out 2 is now facing off with Despicable Me 4. And what you've seen at the very beginning of this video is Despicable Me 4 has such a huge concentration of screens that it'll be hard for Inside Out 2 to continue doing what Disney would hope for. And so it's probably going to run out of gas pretty quickly. That's going to end this film perhaps somewhere around $1.3 billion. Just south, not north, of Mario, although it has a chance at holding on and beating Mario. But Inside Out 2 going up against Despicable Me 4, probably running out of steam now. Despicable Me 4 will not have that problem because there's really not a feature-length family film that it's going to run into between now and Labor Day. So it has a clear runway now to dominate. Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine will be coming out, but that's a hard R. And that hard R is going to hold on to adults, but maybe even drive more families to go see Despicable Me 4. And in a strange twist of fate, Disney might actually drive more male audiences, right? Lots of dads maybe drop the kids off to see Despicable Me 4 as the dads go in the door for Deadpool and Wolverine. Not sure about that, but it's a possibility. But you can see here, if we go to the Screen Rant article, it says, per Deadline, the Inside Out 2 box office has climbed past the $500 million mark in the domestic marketplace. The news comes shortly after the movie passed $1 billion worldwide. As of Friday morning, and this was before the 4th of July, its cumulative domestic total is $503.6 million, and that was before, again, the 4th of July. Now, unfortunately, we're a little bit delayed on what the numbers are for Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4, given that we are on Sunday, and usually when we're on a Sunday, we have the numbers pretty well figured out. But we don't yet because we're delayed quite a bit due to the holiday, we would presume. But it's looking like Inside Out 2 is going to have a fairly good hold, and that Despicable Me 4 is going to perform extremely well. So what does this mean, folks? Well, it means that Despicable Me 4 is likely to underperform prior expectations. And just as I said earlier this week, I no longer believe, and I said this in the review, I no longer believe that it will beat Inside Out 2. That came immediately upon me seeing the movie. Now, many of my colleagues, many of my friends, many of you out there have really enjoyed Despicable Me 4, and you like it a lot. I've given the movie a 4 out of 10, which is shocking, surprising, and perhaps goes against the narrative that I'm just anti-Disney and pro their competitors. But the problem for Despicable Me 4 is that while it is fine as a chuckle-a-bit film, it's not great as an emotional hook film. And animated films seeking to dominate truly, beyond just their legacy, they need to have that emotional attachment, and they need to have a character arc that kids and grown-ups can identify with. So I'll give you some examples of what the film should have done instead. You see, in this movie, there's really no personal growth in any of the characters. If, however, Gru was struggling to connect with his son because of his own personal inadequacies, perhaps because he was a villain and he doesn't want to raise his child in a way that will turn his son into a villain, that could have been a very interesting story, because then Gru would have had to have grown and you would have had a big emotional payoff at the end. Instead, the movie plays it so safe that it's just basically that his son is like the baby from Dinosaurs, the 90s sitcom. It's not the mama all over again. And there's really no fun here except that Gru takes his baby on an adventure and then baby loves Gru. That's as deep as it gets. Now, I can go through many of those different storylines and give you some examples of that, right? And in the past, the Despicable Me franchise has done very well with this. In one of the films, Gru's wife is struggling to connect with the girls. She has to figure out how it is that she's going to connect with these little girls and take her place as the mom in the family. In the first film, Gru is trying to figure out which one is more important, villainy or family. And that's a very deep concept for him. It's funny. It's a flipping of the career versus family idea when you have a villain who's having to, I suppose, switch industries. In this latest film, that's what it needed. It needed a situation where there was an emotional hook, something to be learned. And because that's not there, because it's just for laughs, it will probably struggle to beat Inside Out 2. And it is a reminder to companies like Universal that you cannot sit on your laurels. Even with these highly merchandisable minions, you have to bring out something that's going to be touching. You cannot sit on a lazy script if you want to dominate Disney for the long term. Now, let's take a look. And by the way, folks, I'm not trying to be overly negative on Despicable Me 4 or on the Minions or on Universal. They're going to do really well. They're going to make a huge profit. But Inside Out 2 has put Disney back on the map. Whereas if Universal had come out with a very strong script here and a great movie, something that would make me say, wow, it's a 7 out of 10, it's an 8 out of 10, they would still be beating Disney in consecutive years. And that would have put Disney in a very dire spot. So they had the opportunity. They missed it, though. They didn't miss the financial success. They missed the opportunity to become the indisputable king. Take a look at this article out of Marketplace. I want to show you this before we go. This is such a fascinating article in regards to movie tickets and sales and the observations that have come across in regards to the movie industry, right? There's an entire ecosystem now of folks such as, this channel and Valiant Renegade and others that are following the success or failure of movies and talking about the financials of it. Valiant Renegade, quite the pioneer in this area, but now people are taking notice. And this article by Janet Nguyen says, why are movie box office results reported in dollars rather than tickets sold? Now, this is something we've talked about before. And of course, it's out of Marketplace, but I love the answer here. I think it's a great answer, and I just wanted you to get a chance to see it. It says, listener Stan asks, why are movie box office results reported in dollars rather than tickets sold? Observing how well a movie does in theaters is something of a national pastime. Movie theaters are struggling, but a phenomenon like Barbenheimer last year shows the public has an appetite for success stories. And I would say, folks, again, that the narrative of families waiting for streaming, that is gone now. That excuse was never true. It's not true today. And guess what? People are happy to go the way of movie theaters if you give them something good to watch. As the numbers get bigger, people get more interested, particularly when it comes to money or currency, said Paul Dergar. That's a tough one. Paul D., senior media analyst for ComScore. Sorry, Paul. It's not the first time. An analytics company that tracks box office data. Telling them which films raked in hundreds of millions or billions is one way to catch their eye. Historically, trade journals reported box office results by dollars, a tradition that continues to this day. And it goes on to basically say that due to inflation, the numbers continue to get bigger. And because the numbers continue to get bigger, even if the movies are not that successful, well, people continue to read the articles, especially those who don't pay attention to this sort of thing. They don't remember, oh, yeah, inflation. Movie tickets are like 40, 50% higher than they were 5 years ago. And because of that, it sounds like these movies are extremely successful. I think it's important to keep into context, folks, and we should do this repeatedly, that despite the fact that Inside Out 2 made something like $150 million in its opening weekend and has passed the $1 billion mark, and despite Despicable Me 4 passing $120 million in its first week, these numbers are actually not what they might seem. If you were to take these films back 5 years and apply the movie ticket prices of those days, pre-pandemic, to them, you would find out that butts and seats might be a little less than what would otherwise be indicated by these articles. 5 years ago, Despicable Me 4 is probably a $90 million opening, nothing to sneeze at, but not earth-shattering either. And Inside Out 2 probably would have made somewhere around 115, 120. Again, if you just apply the pre-pandemic numbers. And that's a really good number, but it doesn't put it at the top of the Pixar heap. So when we have these inflationary numbers put in, it makes it seem like these are zeitgeist kinds of films, when in reality, they're performing fine, but they're not necessarily driving huge numbers of people back to the box office in the way that you would have seen if you went all the way back to Toy Story and people were saying, oh my gosh, you have to see this. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. Or Avatar. Oh my gosh, it's 3D like you can't believe. That's not what is happening here, even if the numbers indicate otherwise. And the problem for these companies is that just like inflation affects the movie ticket prices, inflation affects their budgets. The good news, though, folks, is that both of these animated films, they are going to make big money because their budgets are not insane. Good for Disney, and Universal continues to know how to do that quite well. Now, in terms of the summer box office, we've got Deadpool and Wolverine still to go. We've got Twisters. We'll see how those perform. On Twisters, I'm not thinking it's going to be the biggest film of the summer by any means. Deadpool and Wolverine, though, a big wild card. And thankfully, these two animated films keep movies going until next year in terms of cinemas. So the fear that cinemas might start going under held at bay by these movies. And so we are happy to see that. We take all sorts of joy in knowing that cinemas will still be open next year and that movie owners are not having to go to the banks to explain why they cannot make bank anymore. So happy to see theaters staying open. It was quite the shot in the arm to have both of these films perform probably in the vicinity of $1 billion. We'll see on Despicable Me 4. Inside Out 2 clearly north of $1 billion, but Despicable Me 4, we hope it gets to the $1 billion mark, probably 900. All right, folks, that's the video for today. Animation domination, that is the theme of the summer. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a bit. And hope you see why I might have given Despicable Me 4 a lower score than you were expecting, because it needed a strong emotional hook and something for families to learn and lean into. If that had happened, this would be dominating Inside Out 2. All right, folks, on your way out the door, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, it's the notification bell, drop a comment right on down below, let us know your thoughts. And again, thank you for your tremendous support of Vacation Radio. We are continuing to put out new content, new music on the way this week over on Vacation Radio. All right, folks, until we see you next time, which will be just in line with what we always do, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time later today. Folks, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Clickbait, fraud, drama queen. Ugh. I wish there was a channel that was 5 to 6 minute news reads without the drama, frauds, and clickbait that could accurately let me know the current news, providing my crucial context utilizing all the different That Park Place contributors and creators.
Well, stupid. There is. It's the That Park Place YouTube channel, which will be going live real soon, so make sure you're subscribed, so you can really stick it to the algorithms.
You're joking.
Nope.